Right now, we want to take a look at last night's presidential debate and the latest in the 2024 presidential race. For that, we welcome New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu. And, Governor, thank you for being here this morning. Okay, we've talked about a lot of stuff. Frank Luntz was going on and on about eating dogs. To me, or eating cats, right? To me, the thing that really struck out the most, though, and probably where former President Trump did himself the most damage, would be when he doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on the idea that he did not lose the 2020 election.
Yep, and he took the bait. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, as someone who's, voting for Trump and supporting Trump, it was frustrating. That prosecutorial style definitely got under his skin. And I think his team was very adamant. Just keep looking at the camera. Don't make it personal. I think he was trying his best to show some discipline there. So when she did get under his skin, it was amplified. And she tripled down on it, without a doubt. And she took advantage. I think she knew he was going to come in trying to be disciplined so she could be aggressive. The question is, what does this all mean? Right? I mean, that's the big thing. I think it is going to mean something. I think of the 10% swing voters that are out there, I think 80% of them really care about results. Are you going to make my life cheaper? Can you bring my rent down? And for those folks, they did not. They're not going to move because I think it's obvious to them that the vice president didn't answer those questions and really avoided it. 20% are on style are going to potentially be moved. So you'll see a 1 to 1.5%, 2% swing at most in some of these swing states. But there's still 50 days to go. That's a lot of time in politics. There's going to be a lot more action. And how this all sets up into the second debate, if there is one, I think will be very interesting.
I think that's a big question. Frank Luntz said Kamala Harris should not accept a second debate. Do you think there will be one?
Well, they've effectively last night said, oh, we'll do a second debate. Absolutely. Let's go. So they were saying that last night. I think it would be a little bit difficult to backtrack, or they'll have to talk themselves out of it. I think the American people will want it, right? And the other piece of this is it's an hour and a half. I mean, who really watched the full hour and a half?
I did intentionally.
Oh, I did because we're in it. But the average American had to go to bed and make sure. So they got what they needed out of the first 20, 30 minutes. What they're watching now is today's response. And I think overwhelmingly the response is, oh, she beat him. Here's
the thing. The frustrating thing for me watching this and watching a lot of things closely is I don't feel like I learned a lot about either candidate last night. And maybe that's not the purpose of debates anymore. I think that was originally the purpose of debates. I think each of them came in with a different mission than that. And as you said, it's only 50-some days left to go for this. Early ballots have already gone out. Early voting has already started to take place.
I'll say this. I don't think there's much more to learn about Trump. Trump is Trump, right? He can be bombastic. He can throw things out. If anything, you learn that he does have the ability to try to stay disciplined in the moment.
But he had a chance to drill down on everything we don't know about Kamala Harris and her previous positions, her current positions. I mentioned the moderators to you, and you said, well, it was ABC. No one expected anything. People pretty much knew that and assume and look at it the way it was conducted, that was going to be the way it was. But it would have been nice if someone had drilled down. And it should have been him.
He should have been
hitting the ball back.
Yeah, he missed that opportunity to go back and say, wait, I'll give her more time because she just completely ignored your question. And that happened 4, 5, or 6 times.
Right in the first. I only saw the first 25 minutes, and it happened 3 or 4 times. I was like, that was a total non-answer of the tariff.
And what I'll say is I think she was very smart. She gave her non-answer, and at the end, the last 20 seconds of every answer was a shot at him, knowing that would get under his skin, and that's what he would focus and respond on. So she really took advantage of that psychological aspect of how he approaches this stuff. Now, I think he probably woke up this morning, and I think he's upset. I think President Trump is very angry right now. And he's probably blaming his team because he's not going to say, gee, I should have done better. He's going to blame his team. So if that second debate does come in, it'll be interesting to see how he approaches it stylistically. And again, if he can just stay on the issues, he's got the answers.
Let me just add this in really quickly. Trump called into Fox and Friends this morning after the debate, and he said, I'd be less inclined to have a second debate because we had a great night.
Well, no, he did not have a great night. I mean, that's very interesting. He's going to say that on Fox, I assume, and my sense is he's going to push that publicly. But, he knows that,
by the way,
I think as a candidate,